I still remember the day I moved to Ravenswood, a small town nestled in the heart of nowhere. It was as if the world had decided to pause its breath for a moment, and all that remained was an eerie silence. The streets were lined with old oak trees, their gnarled branches stretching towards the sky like skeletal fingers. The houses seemed to lean in, as if sharing secrets, their windows glowing with a soft, golden light that seemed almost otherworldly. I had always been drawn to such places, where the veil between reality and myth was at its thinnest. Little did I know, Ravenswood would become my personal hell. It started with whispers of an ancient history, rumors of a long-forgotten civilization that had once thrived here. Some said it was the remnants of an Atlantis-like city, hidden beneath the earth for centuries, waiting to be rediscovered. Others claimed it was a place where the Native Americans had performed sacred rituals, calling upon powers beyond our understanding. Whatever the truth may have been, one thing was certain: Ravenswood held a deep, unsettling energy that seemed to seep into your very bones. As I stepped off the bus and onto Main Street, I felt a shiver run down my spine. Something about this place felt off, but it wasn't until I stumbled upon an article in the local newspaper that I realized just how off Ravenswood really was. The headline read, "Ancient alien symbols appear mysteriously across town." I rubbed my eyes, thinking it was some kind of prank, but when I looked again, the words remained unchanged. It seemed that Ravenswood had become the focal point of a mysterious invasion. An invasion of symbols, etched into the walls of homes and businesses like cryptic messages from another world. As I walked through the streets of Ravenswood, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The newspaper article had been circulating for days, and no one seemed to know what to make of it. Some claimed they'd seen strange markings on their homes, while others swore they'd spotted glowing symbols etched into the walls of local businesses. I decided to investigate further, starting with my own apartment complex. I approached the wall that separated my unit from the neighbors, and that's when I saw it, a symbol unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was as if someone had taken a chunk of their own skin and pressed it into the plaster, leaving behind a twisted, pulsing image. The symbol seemed to shift and writhe on the wall, like a living thing. My heart racing, I snapped a photo with my phone and called the authorities, hoping they could shed some light on this bizarre phenomenon. But as I waited for help to arrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The symbol seemed to be moving ever so slightly. I spun around, but there was no one there. Shrugging it off as paranoia, I returned to my apartment and started researching online. That's when I stumbled upon a forum thread dedicated to the symbols in Ravenswood. People were sharing their own photos and experiences, all of which seemed to point to a single, disturbing conclusion. These symbols weren't just random graffiti. They were some kind of warning, left by an ancient civilization that had long since vanished into the mists of time. The more I read, the more I became convinced that Ravenswood was at the epicenter of something much bigger than itself. But as night began to fall, casting a dark shadow over the town, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn into something sinister, and that the symbols were just the beginning. As the day went on, the town's inhabitants tried to make sense of the symbols, but their efforts were met with increasing panic. People began to receive cryptic messages, hinting at a malevolent force at work in Ravenswood. The messages were always unsigned, but they seemed to be written in the same twisted script as the symbols on the walls. At first, everyone thought it was just some prankster trying to stir up trouble, but as more and more people began to receive the messages, it became clear that something much darker was at play. The messages spoke of an echo that would soon consume us all, a force that would bring destruction and chaos to our doorstep. Some people tried to dismiss it as mere fantasy, but others were convinced that they had seen things moving out of the corner of their eye, things that didn't belong in this world. And then, one by one, people began to vanish. At first, it was just small things, a lost cat here, a missing phone there, but soon, whole families went missing without a trace. The only thing left behind was an eerie silence, as if the very air itself had been sucked out of the town's lungs. I tried to convince myself that it was all just some kind of mass hysteria, but deep down, I knew better. I knew that something was very wrong in Ravenswood, and that we were running out of time. As night began to fall, the town's residents huddled together in fear, wondering what the next day would bring. Would anyone be left standing? Or would Ravenswood become a permanent tomb, swallowed whole by some ancient, malevolent force? As the days passed, tensions rose as residents grew suspicious of one another, with some turning against each other in fear and mistrust. Neighbors who had once been friendly now avoided eye contact, and whispers of conspiracy spread like wildfire through the streets. Some claimed to have seen strange figures lurking in the shadows, while others spoke of hearing eerie whispers on the wind. The air was thick with suspicion and paranoia, as if everyone was waiting for someone to slip up so they could point fingers and accuse. I tried to stay out of it, but even I couldn't escape the feeling of unease that seemed to permeate every aspect of life in Ravenswood. Then one morning, my best friend Emily went missing. She had left her apartment early, saying she was going for a walk, but when I called her phone, it rang and rang with no answer. Her neighbors reported seeing her walking down the street, but then suddenly disappearing into thin air. I searched everywhere for her, but there was no sign of Emily. It was as if she had vanished into the night, leaving behind only a sense of dread and confusion. The mysterious messages continued to appear, each one more ominous than the last. "They're watching you," wrote one message, scrawled in red ink across my kitchen table. "Don't trust anyone," read another, etched into the wall of our local park. It was as if the town itself was turning against us, conspiring to drive us mad with fear and uncertainty. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I received a message that made my blood run cold. "I'm watching you," it read, with no signature or explanation. I knew then that I was in grave danger, and that I had to find out who or what was behind the strange occurrences in Ravenswood. The days passed, and the town's unease grew. Events began to unfold that couldn't be explained, plaguing the residents with an unshakable feeling of being watched. The streets were filled with an air of tension, as if the very fabric of reality was beginning to unravel. People locked their doors and windows, afraid to venture out into the unknown. Some claimed to have seen shadowy figures lurking in alleys, while others spoke of hearing eerie whispers on the wind. The local news reported a surge in unexplained occurrences, from missing pets to strange noises in the night. It was as if the town itself was descending into madness. I tried to stay out of it, but even I couldn't escape the feeling of unease that seemed to permeate every aspect of life in Ravenswood. The mysterious messages continued to appear, each one more ominous than the last. "They're coming for you," wrote one message, scrawled across my kitchen table in red ink. "Don't trust anyone," read another, etched into the wall of our local park. I knew then that I was living in a nightmare, and that I had to find a way to escape before it was too late. But as I looked around at the faces of my neighbors, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were all hiding something. That they were all in on some sinister plot, and that I was just a pawn in their game. The tension between us grew thicker until it seemed like it would burst into flames at any moment. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the lights went out. Again. As the days went by, the line between invasion and warning started to blur. The symbols seemed to be harbinger of doom rather than an attack. Residents began to feel like they were living in a nightmare. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the wind made them jump with fear. They couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching them, waiting for its moment to strike. The town's streets became empty and silent, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I tried to stay indoors, but even my own home seemed to be playing tricks on me. Doors would slam shut on their own, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the halls at night. It was as if the house itself was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't quite decipher the message. The mysterious messages continued to appear, each one more ominous than the last. "The end is near," wrote one message, scrawled across my kitchen table in red ink. "You can't escape what's coming," read another, etched into the wall of our local park. I knew then that I was running out of time, and that I had to find a way to stop whatever was happening before it was too late. But as I looked around at the faces of my neighbors, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were all in on some sinister plot, and that I was just a pawn in their game. The tension between us grew thicker, until it seemed like it would burst into flames at any moment. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the lights went out for good. This time, there was no sign of them flickering back on. The town was plunged into darkness, and I was left with nothing but my own thoughts to keep me company. I knew then that I had to find a way to survive this nightmare, or risk being consumed by it forever. As more people vanish, the community's grip on reality begins to slip. Some residents turn to conspiracy theories, while others become obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the symbols. The town's streets are now empty and silent, as if everyone is holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I try to stay indoors, but even my own home seems to be playing tricks on me. Doors creak open by themselves, and the sound of footsteps echoes through the halls at night. It's as if the house itself is trying to tell me something, but I couldn't quite decipher the message. The mysterious messages continue to appear, each one more ominous than the last. "The end is near," writes one message, scrawled across my kitchen table in red ink. "You can't escape what's coming," reads another, etched into the wall of our local park. I know then that I'm running out of time, and that I have to find a way to stop whatever is happening before it's too late. But as I look around at the faces of my neighbors, I couldn't shake the feeling that they're all in on some sinister plot, and that I'm just a pawn in their game. The tension between us grows thicker, until it seems like it will burst into flames at any moment. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the lights go out for good. This time, there's no sign of them flickering back on. The town is plunged into darkness, and I'm left with nothing but my own thoughts to keep me company. I know then that I have to find a way to survive this nightmare, or risk being consumed by it forever. The townspeople's desperation and fear lead to a breakdown in communication and cooperation, making it harder for them to work together against the unknown threat. As more residents vanish, the streets become increasingly deserted and eerily quiet. The once thriving community is now on the brink of collapse, with each passing day bringing new fears and uncertainties. I try to find ways to reach out to my neighbors, but even simple tasks like grocery shopping or picking up mail become daunting challenges in the face of this unknown terror. The mysterious messages continue to appear, each one more ominous than the last. "They're coming for you," writes one message, scrawled across my kitchen table in red ink. "You can't escape what's coming," reads another, etched into the wall of our local park. I know then that I'm running out of time, and that I have to find a way to stop whatever is happening before it's too late. But as I look around at the empty streets and vacant homes, I realize that I may be the only one left to face this threat alone. The thought sends a chill down my spine, and I wonder if I'll ever see my friends and family again. Will anyone even remember me when I'm gone? The darkness closes in around me, and I'm left with nothing but the sound of my own footsteps echoing through the deserted streets. I know then that I have to keep moving forward, no matter how scared or alone I am. Clues point to an ancient entity or force that's been awakened by the symbols, discovers cryptic messages, strange artifacts, and unsettling rituals that hint at a sinister presence lurking beneath Ravenswood's surface. As the community tries to come together in fear, they begin to uncover the dark history of their town and the true nature of the threat they face. The streets are now filled with people searching for answers, seeking comfort in each other's company as they navigate this terrifying new reality. But beneath the surface, a sense of unease lingers, and the air is thick with an eerie presence that seems to be watching them all. I wander through the deserted streets, my eyes scanning the buildings for any sign of movement or life. The streets are empty, save for the occasional passerby hurrying to find safety in numbers. I see a group of people gathered around a fire, their faces lit by the flickering flames as they huddle together for warmth and comfort. As I approach, they turn to me with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. They're trying to make sense of what's happening, but the truth is, no one knows what's going on or where it's coming from. The symbols seem to be everywhere, etched into the walls, carved into the trees, and even painted onto the buildings. It's as if the very fabric of our reality has been torn apart. We share stories of the disappearances, of the strange occurrences and unexplained events that have been plaguing us for weeks. We talk about the symbols, trying to make sense of their meaning and significance. But the more we talk, the more we realize that we're not sure what we're dealing with. Is it a natural phenomenon, or is something more sinister at play? As night falls, the group disperses, each person retreating to their own home in search of safety and comfort. I'm left alone once again, my mind racing with questions and fears. What's happening to our town? Who or what is behind this, and how can we stop it? Ravenswood descends into chaos as residents turn on each other in fear and panic. The town becomes a battleground where survival is the only goal. Neighbors who were once friendly now glare at each other with suspicion, while others cower in fear, praying for dawn to come. Panic sets in as people realize they are not alone in their terror. Every door creaks open, every window shatters, and every roof collapses, as if the very foundations of the town are being torn apart from within. The once quiet streets are now a cacophony of screams, wails, and the sound of breaking glass. The stench of smoke and ash hangs heavy in the air, making it hard to breathe. Fear is palpable, and the weight of it threatens to consume everyone. In this desperate state, people turn on each other, seeking safety in numbers or trying to find a way out. Some try to flee, but the roads are jammed with panicked residents, creating a deadly obstacle course. Others barricade themselves indoors, praying that the horrors outside will pass them by. The town's infrastructure begins to collapse as buildings crumble and power lines snap. The once proud Ravenswood has become a war zone, where only the strongest survive. In this desperate struggle for life, alliances are forged and broken, and the true nature of the threat is revealed. It becomes clear that something ancient and malevolent has been awakened by the symbols, and it will stop at nothing to claim its due. Now one of the few remaining survivors stumbles upon a dark secret that threatens to consume them all. They realize that the symbols were just the beginning of an invasion that will leave Ravenswood forever changed or destroyed. The once thriving town is now a desolate wasteland, its streets littered with debris and its buildings reduced to rubble. The air is thick with the stench of death and decay, and the only sound is the distant rumble of thunder. Eyes are bloodshot from lack of sleep, and their mind is reeling from the horrors they've witnessed. They stumble through the ruins, desperate to find a way out, but every door leads to more destruction, and every window shows only darkness. The symbols that once seemed like a mere nuisance now seem like a harbinger of doom. Knows that they are running out of time, and that soon they will be consumed by the very force that destroyed their town. They see visions of the past, of loved ones who were taken from them, and of a future that is forever lost. His grip on reality begins to slip, and they wonder if they are truly alone in this desolate world. As they stumble through the ruins, they come across a figure in the distance, a figure who seems to be watching them with an unblinking gaze. Approaches cautiously, unsure of what to expect, but as they draw closer, they realize that it is one of their own, a person who was thought to be dead, and yet still walks among the living. The figure's eyes lock on Tooth, and they see a glimmer of recognition, but also something else, something that sends shivers down their spine. The figure speaks in a voice that is barely above a whisper, saying only 2 words: "It's coming." In a heart-stopping climax, confronts the source of the terror, an otherworldly presence that has been awakened by the ancient symbols. The outcome is devastating and leaves a lasting, deeply disturbing impression on the reader. Stands frozen in horror as the truth reveals itself. The being before them is not of this world, its very existence defying the laws of nature. Its eyes burn with an otherworldly energy, and its presence seems to warp the fabric of reality. Feels their mind recoiling in terror as the being speaks in a voice that echoes through eternity. "I am the devourer," it says, "and I have come for you." Realizes that the symbols were not just a prank or a hoax, but a call to arms from a realm beyond human comprehension. The ancient civilization had tried to communicate with this entity, but their attempts were met with failure and destruction. The being's presence has been building in power for centuries, and now it is ready to consume everything in its path. Sees the world around them begin to distort and writhe like a living thing, as if reality itself is being torn apart by the devourer's arrival. The symbols that once seemed so innocent now seem like a warning, a desperate attempt to alert humanity to the horror that was coming. Knows that they are too late, that the damage has already been done. The world will never be the same again, and humanity is doomed to face an existence beyond its wildest nightmares. The devourer's presence fills the air with an unspeakable horror, a feeling of being consumed by an endless void. Feels their minds shattering under the weight of this revelation, their very sanity hanging by a thread. And yet, even in the midst of this chaos, finds a strange sense of calm, as if they have finally understood the true nature of reality. The devourer's arrival is not just an end, but also a beginning of a new era, one that will be defined by terror and despair. Looks up at the sky and sees that it has changed, transformed into a deep, foreboding crimson. The stars have vanished, replaced by twisted, gnarled branches that seem to reach out like skeletal fingers. Knows that this is not just a world-ending event, but also a transformation, one that will remake humanity in the image of its new master.